Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the Geeks with Wives Popcorn Podcast. So this is your host, Chad. You know me from the Capes podcast, and now the third episode of the Popcorn Podcast. I do not have my regular co-host, Natalie, tonight. Natalie is working. Womp womp. So sad. But I do have another film and TV buff with me, another one of the geeks. Tommy, and how do you say your last name, Tommy? Is it Surrett?
Surrett, yep, you got it right.
Surrett. So how are you doing tonight, Tommy?
I'm doing good.
So you're the one. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's say it's a little late on my time, so I had to.
Yeah, you're on East Coast time.
Yeah.
So
it's 11:30 right now.
Yeah. And we recorded at 8:30 my time because I got to put my kids to bed. When I was doing it with Capes, their bedtime is at 8 o'clock, and we start recording at 8. And man, it's summertime, the sun's still out, and everything. It wasn't working too good, so we changed that to 8:30 for this one. So
yeah.
Sorry, man, but thanks for joining. Thanks for joining me tonight. We've got an evening loaded with news and a great topic that Tommy came up with. What I'd like to do actually is start off with that news because we have some pretty cool stuff. Normally we do the news second segment, but we have some pretty cool announcements that came out today that I want to get to first. So first off, let's talk about. Tommy? Did you see the Daredevil announcement for Peter Shinkodo joining Daredevil?
No, I mean I saw you mention it earlier in the day, but I didn't actually see it.
So Peter Shinkodo has joined Daredevil, and let me remember what his character's name was here before I butcher it. It was. And I dead air. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like, wow, horrible. It's like Hear Show or something like that. I don't know. I'm messing it up. I've already screwed up this podcast. Maybe we should start over, Tommy. But he was signed recently to do Daredevil, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is because Peter's a friend of mine, and he's done the show before. He did the show a couple of months ago with us, and for the past few weeks, he's been a little bit coy on Facebook. And he kept posting, big things coming, a lot of stuff going on, all these different things. So I texted Peter, and I told him, I said, Peter, you gotta tell your boy what's up. So he calls me, and we had a pretty long conversation about all the projects he was getting involved with, and Peter's a storyteller. If you haven't heard his podcast that he did with us, it was almost a 2-hour podcast because he's just this phenomenal storyteller, and he goes on and on, but it's so interesting. You can't make him stop because, this guy is such a fascinating guy. So he calls and he starts telling me the process about how actually he got offered a part on Arrow. And I was like, you're going to be on Arrow? And he's all, wait. And he's in a story. I'm thinking, great, that's Arrow. I'm going to have a contact on the set of Arrow and everything like that. And, you'd be pretty excited, right, Tommy? If your buddy told you, it was like, I'm going to be on Arrow. And actually, I don't want to say what he was cast for on Arrow. They asked for him personally. I don't want to get into any disparaging things wherever. They did hire somebody else on for the part, but it was going to be a pretty big part on Arrow for next season. And he's going through these stories and how his sci-fi is looking at him for a show, and then he gets into Marvel is doing these things on Netflix. I'm like, yeah. Wait, did you get signed up with Marvel? And he's still into his story, and he's telling a story, and he's Peter, if you talk to him, sometimes he's pretty mellow. Like on the podcast, he's pretty mellow, but a lot of times he's very quick, and and he's very excited. And he was obviously very excited for this. And he tells me I signed on to be a character on Shield, or not on Shield. Wow, I just butchered that. On Daredevil, to be in the Marvel universe. And he's a huge Marvel fan. He's a huge comic fan and that genre fan. We went through that again on the podcast with him, how he is a big Star Wars buff and everything. And it was just such a great conversation with him. And it's just pretty cool. We're going to be able to have someone on set that I can contact occasionally, get some views from, things like that of on set. And he's going to be a recurring character that's going to branch off into some of the other series as well. I know he said Daredevil. He said his character's supposed to branch off into some of the other ones. Again, I don't. He did say he's not allowed to talk about too much, so I don't want to share like everything out of the conversation and then ruin my friendship kind of thing. But yeah. I've been sitting on this stuff for like 3 weeks. Do you think you could sit on that information for 2 or 3 weeks, Tommy?
Oh no, especially if you're with you doing the podcast. I mean, that seems like information you want to talk about.
It hurt, because I did have to let other people scoop it first because it came from a friend and, and asked me to kind of hold on to it and everything. And I told him, don't worry, your friendship is more important than any kind of press release to me. But now that it's out, I have his blessing to talk about it. And he did send us a little Geeks with Wives exclusive message. Let me bring it up here. He can't talk about it too much, so it's a pretty short reaction. But this is from Peter. So my reaction to the announcement today is I've known about my casting for a while, but didn't expect Deadline Hollywood to find out. But that Nikki Fink knows everything like a fly on the studio wall! Exclamation point. She must be, just one of the regulars that's always around and digs up stuff. Said, of course, I am bound and can't say a word about it right now, so don't ask about my contribution to the show. But in my lifetime, I worked for Steven Spielberg, and now I get to live in a world created by Stan Lee, who I consider a friend. Life couldn't be better. I'm a Marvel guy through and through, always have been, just ask my folks. So that was an email he sent to me today. It was pretty cool. I'm sure I'll have some more information on him and his stuff coming up here pretty quick, or over the weeks to come as he's filming and everything, and hopefully get him on the podcast again soon. So what do you think about that, Tommy?
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I mean, I haven't heard too much about it, but I'm interested. I like the Daredevil character. I know he's kind of underrated with a lot of the more prevalent Marvel characters. So I always kind of like Daredevil, and I was just I was looking at the project a little bit here, and I was seeing who is it. I mean, it has a good creator behind it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's coming out in 2015, it says, so next year.
Yeah. So they're filming right now on location in Hell's Kitchen, which is cool. Peter actually packed up and moved to New York for this project. Indefinitely, just packed up his stuff on a week, next week kind of basis, and took off there. And it's kind of sad I couldn't see him before he went. Yeah, I mean, he's all in with that project. I think it's great. I'm very glad for you, Peter, if you ever get a chance to listen to this. But yeah, I really, really am happy that they're doing some great things with Daredevil. They've signed on some great talent. They're doing a lot of excellent things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always kind of waited, because with all the film franchise getting rebooted and everything, I was kind of waiting for Daredevil to have its second go, because there's a lot of places that they could have taken the character, and it just kind of seemed like the Ben Affleck version kind of tanked, and no one was interested in doing any more Daredevil, I guess. I mean, so I'm glad to see that it's going to come back as a TV series, at the very least.
Yeah, the character's name is going to be Hachiro, I think Hachiro. I'm sorry for butchering that at the beginning. What I like about characters like Daredevil and stuff, and we'll move on from this subject here in a second, is that on Netflix with 12 episodes, they're really going to get a good chance to flesh out the character and flesh out. And what his character is supposed to be part of the Hand, I believe it is. So even the bad guys will get more than just a two-dimensional treatment because they can focus on them, and then they can be in a shared universe to be able to interact in between different shows and stuff, which will be excellent. It'll be great to see. Now, on to the second bit of news. I did want to talk about a couple of shows that have come out recently. One this week that were just excellent. One is on HBO, The Leftovers. Now, I know you probably got a chance to look at the review for that episode 3, Tommy. But have you heard about the show at all?
I mean, I saw a lot of previews for it while I was watching Game of Thrones. So I mean, I was thinking about starting to watch it, but I didn't start yet. I was thinking about going back. It's not too far into the season, but it looked interesting. Like I kind of got an idea of what it was about, but I didn't know for sure. So I was kind of interested to see like the mystery and what was really going on, what kind of show it was. It looked exciting.
Yeah, and it was. I was kind of the same thing. I heard about it a couple of times, and actually wasn't real clued in on it until recently. And and the wife and I just popped it on demand and started picking it up. It's an amazing show. It's another excellent, just everything, cinematography, acting, story are fantastic. But specifically, I wanted to talk about episode 3 that just happened. I got called out on spoilers, and we don't really. I don't think we spoil too much. If something's a year or two old, I think spoilers is fair game. But if we are going to have a spoiler cast like current season Game of Thrones or something, I will call that out and mention it. So there won't be any spoilers talking about Leftovers and everything like that. I do want to give impressions and stuff on it. Now, I am well known for not being a fan. Of not being a fan of Christopher Eccleston. Now, let me take a quick break because our special co-host was able to join us. I know she was having some technical difficulties and has finally been able to get in here. Let me introduce her real quick. I met, and I don't want to say your name wrong. It's Isola, right?
You got it.
Okay. So I'm not as bad as Casey is at names, but I like to say people's names correctly, so I always check first. Now, Isola and I met in a press line for WonderCon, and we've talked back and forth a little bit, and Isola's going to start doing a little bit of coverage for us on the site, at cons, stuff like that. So I wanted to get her on the podcast, maybe as a recurring person every now and then. So, Isola, how are you doing this evening?
Well, I'm doing much better now that I was finally able to get this up and rolling, so...
Yeah, I mean, you were having all kinds of... You were texting me issues that I've never heard of with I can't get in, I'm having timeouts, and we got in fantastically.
Just so you know, if anybody ever has this issue again, do not have Firefox on your Mac. Use Google Chrome. It worked perfectly, so that was my bad. I apologize. But I'm very excited to jump on in and see what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, we did get through. We're actually going through the news section right now. We're in the first part. I was talking about initially some stuff on Peter Shinkodo, which you can re-listen to later. But we're on the first news item, which is the Leftovers that I sent. Now, what I was saying about the Leftovers is I'm pretty well known on the podcast and everything of not being a big fan of Christopher Eccleston's, and mainly because he was such a douchebag when it came to Doctor Who, of course, and him leaving the show and not so much bad-mouthing him. He's been fairly quiet about it, but his complete resistance from coming back and recording any specials for the 50th anniversary, being involved in the 50th anniversary episode and everything. That being said, I'm married, and one of the things about being married for a while, or being with the same person for, like, my wife and I, including marriage and dating and everything, have known each other for over a decade. And neither of us really like Christopher Eccleston, but we were watching The Leftovers the other day, and I was laying there on the couch, and she was on the other couch, and in my head I'm thinking, holy crap, his performance is going to make me like him. And as I'm thinking this in my head, my wife goes, I know you don't like him, but this is really good. And she echoes so many things that I'm thinking in my head, and it happens all the time. It's really kind of weird as I'm thinking them. But this episode was one of the most fantastic pieces of television that I've ever seen. And I've watched a lot of TV. I watch a lot of TV. I love cinema and television. But Two Boats and a Helicopter, again, I don't want to give too much about the story away, was this fantastic. I mean, he carries almost the entire episode. Just this fantastic character piece and character development for him on the show, where he hasn't really had a big part in the first couple of episodes. You just kind of saw him, and I was like, oh, there's a crappy Doctor Who. There's the Ninth Doctor. Ugh, am I going to be able to take this? Now, have you guys are you clued in, Isola, on The Leftovers? Have you heard about it yet, other than this article?
I have it recorded to watch. It's
you have
on
to
the long list of shows to watch. But it was funny because I was watching the Will Wheaton Project, and he actually discussed some of the things that were going on with that, so it made me a little privy to the episode in itself. And at first I was laughing watching what was happening on this, but then I went back and I watched some of what was actually happening and read what the episode actually was about, and the pieces that I saw, it blew me away, because I'm like you, I'm not a huge fan of his. He really left a bad taste in my mouth with the whole Doctor Who thing as well, so it was, I was like, do I really want to watch this? Do I really want to stare at him? And of course,
yes.
It was mind-blowing. Like, I was just like, wow, I really need to get into this show now. So I'll probably be up until like midnight, 1 o'clock to try to catch up on some stuff.
Yeah, I did see that piece on the Will Wheaton Project, which that shows a little, it's getting a little better. It's finding its cohesion a little bit more. But yeah, basically they just showed clips of him getting punched in the face and hitting the head with a rock, and really that's what the episode is about, is this guy. Man, the monologue, and I don't want to, again, this monologue he tells at the beginning about a young boy and how and his wish is just this phenomenal piece that you really feel the pain and what he goes through. They have these brief little flashbacks of what kind of brought him to this point in his life, these tragedies that he's faced throughout his life, and where it has taken him and why he's so steadfast in what he's doing on the show. So the next piece of news, or actually new TV show out this week that I wanted to talk about, was The Strain. Now, The Strain, there's been a lot of talk about it. I've seen a lot going on. I was a little worried about it at first. I tried to kind of keep myself at a little bit of a media blackout. I didn't watch any previews. I knew almost nothing about it until I watched it the other night. And another fantastic show by FX, in my opinion. I very much enjoyed it. I liked the way they took it from a standpoint of how would we deal with it if this sort of thing happened. The CDC gets involved, and all these different things. And it's almost this real world mixed with the supernatural world. Very effectively, and they have very good immediate character development with the characters. Did you guys get a chance to watch that at all?
Yeah, I got to watch it. I read all three books of it. I just finished the last book this morning. The was it The Night Eternal?
Okay.
Um, I mean, I want to see. I don't know. I don't want to be one of those people that say the book is better, because I hate those people with movies because I see them as two different things. But the opening of The Strain, the first book, the opening it with the plane coming in was done a little bit differently, and I found the opening of the book like immensely compelling. Like I couldn't I that was like my favorite part of the entire series was the opening of this because it was just I had no clue what was going on, and they did such a good job of like slowly building. Where I know they kind of have restrictions with the TV show, like they kind of have to get going. Where like I don't know, like the opening, the whole plane sequence is probably I want to say a better part of a third of the book. Um,
Oh,
so
wow.
they had a lot more time to deal with it. So I mean, it'll probably translate to be about like two and a half episodes. But I mean, they changed some things around, and I'm trying not to get hung up over it because at the end of the day, the characters are going to be the characters. I thought once the episode got going, I kind of was able to let go of what I read, and I thought some of the characters. I really like the character Gus. I thought he came across really good. He sounds pretty much how I saw him in the book. It's really interesting. Like how you have you read the books at all?
I
No.
I have not. No, I'm a big reader. I haven't been as big a reader as I should be since I had kids. It's tough. It's
Yeah,
tough.
I wanted to get on it because I went to Chuck Hogan's book signing a couple of years ago. I think just after the third book was released, and he was there and he was talking about them wanting to get the show turned into a TV series, and then they wanted to do a trilogy of movies. And then they went back to a TV series. It was kind of interesting to hear his side of the development of it, and how he was approached for it. It gets kind of not spoiling for anything for everyone because the show just started, but it's kind of interested to see. Um, in the books, it kind of goes back and forth. With if it's like they're playing the scare straight and the TV show in the book, or if they're going for B horror movie, And it was kind of interesting to see when the cave. I don't want to give anything away, but the cave character and you know the gratuitous scene. I mean, that's all I'll say. I'll step around, but it was kind of interesting to see some of the cuts because it reminded me of some of Sam Raimi's and Evil Dead. The flash cuts, the close-ups, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it was I kind of had a better handle of what I read and kind of what they were talking about doing with the show.
All right. Have you got a chance to see it, Isola?
Yes, I did watch it, and I was actually very impressed. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the next episode. So I'm kind of glad that I haven't read anything about the books or anything like that, because I have noticed that a lot of times if you are really fond of a book and then you see it on the big screen, it does tend to kind of hurt you a little bit when they don't do it justice. So, but yeah, I thought it was actually a great take on that type of monster situation, because if you look at it in the past, it's always been such a romanticized type of thing. But in reality, it's a monstrous type of thing. So now we're getting a completely different look and view on it. It's making a little more, in a way, realistic, because you do have the CDC coming in and they're treating it like it's some biohazard type thing. So I really I'm looking forward to seeing where the show's going to go, because so far they really got me hooked. So
Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. So I would say it's a definite check out on FX. FX puts out some good stuff. Now on to the next piece of news. We got our first full look of Peter Capaldi as Doctor Who. Isola, why don't you watch the trailer, correct?
Yes, I did.
Why don't you give me your take on the new trailer?
So, I'm not quite sure what to think at this point because it looks very, very intriguing, and with where they're going with it, you hear the Daleks, and it. Right now, what I'm still trying to wrap my head around is, the new Doctor. And it's not to say that Peter Capaldi is not going to do a good job. I've always had this, my favorite Doctor has always been the 10th Doctor. David Tennant did an amazing job. It took me forever to, get used to Matt Smith. So one of those things is that it's not so much that the trailer didn't get me hook, line, and sinker. I'm still just a little iffy about who the new Doctor is. But I'm also very intrigued about how he's going to take it, because he asks a very, good question, basically asking, is he a good person? And you're like, I don't know. So I'm really curious to see where they're going to take it, who's going to be playing major roles in it. It seems like it's going to be going more on the darker path based on what they showed in such a small amount of time. So I'm obviously going to be tuned in.
What about you, Tommy?
I didn't watch it just because I've never seen Doctor Who. I'm one of those people.
Hey, fair enough.
I want to see it. I was gonna start out. I have it the last series on my Netflix queue. I don't know. I was gonna watch it, and then I was gonna say I really would have no clue, any viewpoint if I was to watch this. I don't know who anybody is. I know the Doctor Who wears a scarf and he travels around in a phone booth. That is pretty much the extent of my knowledge of Doctor Who.
Now, my take on the trailer, I'm excited for Peter Capaldi. I think he's going to bring a dramatic flair. I'm a big David Tennant fan, but David Tennant brought a lot of really good goofiness and then had a pretty good dark side. But let's be honest, he wasn't the best actor, and neither was Matt Smith. They brought kind of a zaniness to it. I think what Peter Capaldi is going to be able to do is ground it and be a more dramatic and in-depth actor than we've seen for a Doctor to this point. Now, saying that, my issue was it has a very cinematic feel now. Whereas previously we got that real deep cinematic feel, at least what I saw in the trailer. We got those on Christmas specials and things like that. But in general, we got the basic feel. It's really hard to explain. I mean, if you watch Doctor Who, you understand the feeling of Who. I mean, the way the episodes are recorded, and if you start in the current restarting of Doctor Who, you see that where they start to get money and popularity, and the cinematography and sets look better, but now it's almost movie-like, and that's one of the complaints I've really heard from a lot of different podcasts and stuff, that the BBC is really trying to push towards the American audience now and Americanize it rather than it look more like a BBC product. So I hope it doesn't lose that what makes it wonderful, which is that kind of zaniness, that kind of monster of the week type thing with a cool underlying story. So
you definitely have a point there. Now that you mentioned that, I was watching it on my laptop, so obviously that doesn't really, show the best quality at times. But now that you mention that, you do make a good point, and it could be concerning because once you're starting to make more money on things, and trying to appeal to certain audiences, a lot of times they will cut short on other things, whether it be the writing or certain actors that they bring in because they think that that's going to bring in more money as well. Yeah. I remember sitting up late at night, with my mom watching reruns of Doctor Who on, I don't even remember what it was, but when I was a kid. So I remember there was a lot of hokiness, but at the same time, it had such an appealing quality to it that young and old, you just got sucked in. So I want it to stay that way because, that's what we grew up with. My mom and I, that was our love. So fingers crossed, it's getting a higher quality of picture and nothing else going to go down the tube. So.
Yes, and that hokiness is part of what makes it beautiful.
Yes.
And that little bit of cheesiness, and that's one of the reasons I can sit with my wife and enjoy it, and my kids can sit and enjoy it as well. It's one of those things to where we can all enjoy it together or separately and everything. But speaking of too much money ruining things, I want to jump into the last news piece for tonight, and that was There was 10 changes that came out in the Spider-Man 2 script. We're not going to talk about all of them, but Spider-Man 2 and some of the reports that I've read recently are that the budget for Spider-Man 2, including advertising and everything, is between $400 and $500 million. That's insane.
Wow.
They spent a ridiculous amount of money, and it's made close to $800. So what they're saying is, after everything's said and done, that they're not going to make a ton of money off of it with what they expected, and they just flittered money away. And then reading a lot of these script changes, there were so many amazing things that they could have kept in that, not even amazing, but just little things and reasons why. The big one I want to talk about for me was the inclusion of Rhino. In the script changes, he was literally just that cameo at the end, and he didn't have any involvement throughout the rest of the movie. But they brought him in the beginning so that they can set up the Sinister Six. And really, I think what they did when they did that, they made him a very hokey and forgettable and laughable character. Now, I know Tommy has quite a few things to say about these script changes. We were talking about a little bit before we started. Now, out of those changes, which one was kind of stuck in your craw the most there, Tommy?
Well, it's interesting because I have a kid, I have a son, so I haven't been able to get to the theater to actually see Spider-Man 2, but I went through the list and I was surprised of some of the things that weren't included in them. Mainly, the biggest one that I noticed was what happens to Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane, and the whole dynamic. You would, from a character building standpoint, you would think that they would want to get Mary Jane in there when Gwen Stacy, that was kind of like the interesting part of Spider-Man with Peter Parker, the whole love triangle between he likes both of them and how he works that out. So I was interested to see. I didn't see Spider-Man 2, so I'm not sure. I'm just kind of going off of the notes.
Okay.
But I'm kind of if it ends the way that I think it ends after reading notes, I was a little bit surprised about that. And
they had to ditch Mary Jane once they decided. The issue is once they decided to go Sinister Six, and then they needed to branch off their movie franchise and have all these different characters they could make movies of. They really just kind of ruined. They ruined the movie. This should have been the movie that it was originally scripted, and then moved into the Sinister Six, and then in the next one, maybe had a couple of Easter eggs at the end and stuff like that. But they did take out a lot of the heart. Like you're saying, that love triangle with Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy, and
that's a major part of the Spider-Man's history, and it goes further after Gwen Stacy's death. He plays a lot of that back in his mind when Mary Jane's in trouble. So it's just interesting that they would ruin that.
Yeah, well, and they took out an appearance, it's saying, by J. Jonah Jameson, and that was also one of my complaints about the movie was, that's another huge part of Spider-Man. A whole other character is the the Daily Bugle and its staff is a character in the Spider-Man comics and in the Spider-Man universe of its own. And J. Jonah Jameson being the face of that. And there's almost zero mention in the movie of it. So really kind of removing those parts, we're just sad. You know, I thought they could have done a lot better job with the original script, but again, they saw how well Marvel was doing with their properties and decided they needed to figure out a way to utilize their single property however they could.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because with the Daily Bugle, I mean that kind of nowadays that kind of takes on a life of its own with just the way the news works nowadays. It'd be easy to modernize the Daily Bugle and have and everybody kind of identifies with slanted news networks. I mean, what a better character to build that? It's like he's like the epitome of that.
Right.
So I'm just disappointed with. They leave him out too.
Now, Isola, what was your take on any of these script changes? Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of them here that I really wish were in there because when we went and saw the movie, when I left, the first thing I thought was it was almost piecemeal together. It seemed like things were missing. It seemed like things were rushed. The whole situation, like the one with Max, where he becomes Electro, and the reason why or how he, became enraged in Times Square, to me, it didn't make any sense. A lot of things didn't make sense. It almost was like they just threw him in there, just to say, oh, okay, we need some, banging and smashing around, and let's jack up Times Square. But if you read, kind of like the subplot to it, you're seeing that there's more emotion and more, hatred in the sense of why he has become so enraged. So I think that having that subplot of, his mother and how awful, she really was, just to see that would have probably made a little more sense there. And then another thing, too, with the back and forth of, Gwen and Peter, a lot of it felt almost creepy, kind of, and you don't want a relationship on screen to feel creepy. You want it to feel loving and romantic, and I mean that's the whole point that you're putting in the love interest. So with that and not having Mary Jane, it just a lot of it just didn't make sense. And I understand that they want to have their spin-offs, so to speak, but you need to do it right. So had they made this one and kept everything that they had taken out of the script, and then in the third one moved on to really starting to show the 6 of them, then it would have made more sense. But at this juncture, I walked out pretty disappointed. So
yeah, and we're not doing reviews, but yeah, I mean they're saying, and again, just a few reports that the Spider-Man franchise for Sony's in trouble. Who knows? Maybe they're just trying to soften it up, so maybe they'll sell it back to Disney. Let's cross our fingers. So, let's go ahead and move on to our big topic this week. Now, this topic, it's going to be discussing big-name directors and their smaller, lesser-known movies. Now, this is Tommy's topic. This is his suggestion. This is a reason why I asked him to be on the show, because I really liked it. So, item by item, here, Tommy, I kind of want you to lead the way. Let us know, starting with Tim Burton. What was your take on this? Or just give me initially your thought process on this subject.
Well, the Tim Burton one was the first one that came to mind because I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I know it's kind of weird to say that as an adult, but
not at all.
I feel like Pee-wee kind of got, as Pee-wee's Playhouse came out and was it Big Top Pee-wee, the character kind of became more of a caricature of, Pee-wee, which I don't know if that really makes sense, but the Pee-wee's Big Adventure, is a cool movie. I mean, it was Tim Burton's first major film, and it was written by Paul Reubens and Phil Hartman. I mean, that alone, I mean, it should get people excited about this movie. But whenever I bring the movie up, people kind of like roll their eyes, like, "Oh yeah, Pee-wee's Big Adventure." I always bring up that Tim Burton directed it, and it has a lot of his trademarks in it, and people kind of forget about that. And through conversation, they always kind of want to go back and look at it, and like that kind of gave me the idea of it. It's always interesting to go back and look at bigger names, lesser known films, and kind of see their journey that they took. Because after you see Batman, Beetlejuice, and Sleepy Hollow, it's interesting to go back and watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and you see the dream sequence where what's his name? They're burning his bike, and
it's been forever. You're on your own, buddy.
Francis,
it's been forever.
Okay, yeah. Francis is burning his bike, and they're having these scary looking clowns running around, and this creepy carnival music. I mean, it's very much like Tim Burton. Like, it's hard to watch that movie and not see Tim Burton, and it kind of always surprises me when people forget the fact that he directed it, and after you say that, they kind of look at it in a different light. Like, maybe I'll give this one a chance again. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Now, it being a little bit more of a lighthearted version of a Tim Burton movie, what do you think? I mean, my take on Tim Burton is he's become a little too much like Tim Burton.
Burton?
A little too Tim Burton now, to where, like you said, there's a lot of those Easter eggs and things where you see where he's going, where now his movies are almost over the top in all of those things. I find myself having a hard time watching a Tim Burton movie anymore. I mean, it's almost nails on a chalkboard for me at this time. Whereas, I did enjoy Batman when I was younger. I did enjoy a lot of those things. Rewatching those now, maybe we'll have a podcast just on how those don't stand up too well watching them these days. But Isola, it sounded like you were probably a Pee-wee's fan.
Oh yeah. Okay, so my brother's 4 years younger than me, and he would go bonkers over Pee-wee's Big Adventure. We'd be homesick. Sis, can we put it in? Come on, let's watch it. This is going to be great. We're going to go. And he would recite it, and I'd be like, holy cow. And actually now, I think I watched it maybe 3 months ago. I decided to again, and I realized that I still have this special place in my heart for it. And not just because of nostalgic reasons, because, my brother and I used to watch it. But, you see this innocence of an adult and how he has this one precious thing that means so much to him, and it's taken away from him. But then you also see how Tim Burton puts his little spin on things, and it's just between the two of them and how they worked together, it really shows that it worked. It did. And going back onto some of the Tim Burton-esque type of things that are in there, one of the things that stood out was Large Marge.
Oh, Large Marge, yes.
Yeah, so when, you see the scene, and it reminded me of Beetlejuice. I was like, oh my God, I remember, the big bulging eyes popping out of the head, and you're like, how did I not know that this was, Tim Burton? His stamp is on there all over the place. So yeah, I love the movie. I'll probably go and watch it again because it's just, it makes you giggle, and it's just, there's something pure about it, simple and fun, but it still has these little weird twists and angles to them. So.
Also, for earlier works like Phil Hartman's, the ending at the drive-in, like I could just see Phil Hartman writing that. Like, it's such a Phil Hartman joke of they wrote Pee-wee's Big Adventure and turned it into a major motion picture, and they're playing it as this James Bond-esque super agent trying to get this top secret government motorcycle. It's just it just reminds me of just like just Bill Hartman from Simpsons and Saturday Night Live. Like it's just like that kind of joke, and I still understand how. I mean, people just see Pee-wee in this movie and they're just kind of turned off to it because, you know, I don't know what Pee-wee kind of came to represent later on, but like the movie is a good watch. It's a fun one to watch.
All right, the next one that I wanted to talk about was one of my, I wouldn't call him one of my favorite directors, but a director that I have a lot of respect for, which is Quentin Tarantino. Now, what was your take on Quentin and his older work there, Tommy?
Well, it's interesting because I'm actually reading through all of his screenplays right now, and the screenplay for True Romance is interesting. If you read the original screenplay compared to what actually got made into the film, is a lot more like the Quentin Tarantino that we'd recognize. It's more non-linear. It's more postmodern. It has kind of like his. It has a lot of his. Even though he didn't direct it, it has a lot of his stamps. They kept a lot of his stuff in. It has the heavy monologues. It has the quick back and forth. It has the rapid speech, pop culture references. It has all of that, and so I think. And if you have it on DVD, he actually does a commentary of talking through the DVD of it, of how happy he is that it was the first thing that he sold, and they kept it pretty true to form. They changed the ending, but he said that worked for a Tony Scott movie. Like it wouldn't be his ending, but it would have been works for what it was. And it has like probably one of my favorite monologues by the Dennis Hopper one about the Moors. Have you that and Quentin Tarantino was saying that he was chasing. Right, he says that for a long time he considered that his greatest thing he's ever written, and he's been chasing that. And he said that he hoped he topped it in *Inglourious Basterds* in the opening of it. But the Moors conversation, it
was so good. And Dennis Hopper's delivery of it. I mean, it's wow. Yeah, that's a really good monologue.
Yeah, and the way that he films monologues is excellent. I mean, you see it in a lot of his movies where it's usually like a single frame, single camera. They're not, changing angles and everything on it. So it's really like you sitting there listening to a person, and that really hasn't changed. The reason I probably respect Tarantino a lot more than I do like Tim Burton is Tarantino has stayed pretty true. I mean, the guy can get a budget for just about anything, but if you watch movies like Django Unchained and *Inglourious Basterds*, they don't differ a huge amount from excellent movies like *Reservoir Dogs* and *Pulp Fiction*. You have more set pieces, yeah, there's obviously more money spent, but they do rely on physical effects, they do rely on amazing characters and acting and writing versus anything else. And that's one of the, when he announced that he's back on to do The Hateful Eight, and then now that he has intentions to do Kill Bill Volume 3, I'm sold.
Yeah. No, Quentin Tarantino is probably one of my favorite filmmakers. He's definitely. I like his writing style. I like his directing, his approach to directing, and I kind of dig the way he kind of is. I'm sorry, I don't know where I'm going with this. I dig the direction he takes. I mean, I kind of want him to get out of the whole historical piece. I would like to see him kind of go back more to crime, but I kind of understand why he went out of it, because he thought his approach was becoming old hat, and he wanted to go out and do other things, which I can respect.
Because he wrote one of the best fucking westerns that we've seen in like 100 years. That's why. I mean, Django Unchained, is one of the best westerns, period, hands down, ever written.
Yeah, no. I mean, I love Django. I mean, I love all of his movies. Don't get me wrong. The only one that I kind of don't have a soft spot for, but I do like is Death Proof. I mean, that one I felt like it was he could have maybe executed a little bit better. But
yeah, and that's generally what people say too, you know. So let's move on to the last director. Do you have something to say about Tarantino, Azola, before we move on?
Besides that, I love him. I think he's
sounds fine.
You guys, you know, really hit the nail on the head with him. I mean, he's probably on my top 5 for, you know, writers/directors. Look, the guy knows his shit. He knows what he's doing. He sticks to it, and he produces some amazing stuff. So, can't wait for the next thing.
His appearance in Django Unchained as the slave.
oh yes.
Oh my God, it's so phenomenal. I mean, he's Quentin Tarantino, but he's a wacky guy, but even that appearance was great.
Yep.
I really enjoyed that. So let's talk about Shane Black. Tommy, why don't you talk about Shane Black?
Well, Shane Black, I find interesting because he's been around for a long time, and he's created some of the franchises everybody loves, like Lethal Weapon.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't seem to be like a big name anymore until Iron Man 3 came out. Now everybody's kind of talking about Shane Black. I really liked the first movie he did was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey Jr. in it, and I thought that was a phenomenal movie. A lot of people haven't seen that though. I'm not really sure why, but I liked his. It was kind of interesting because again, like I read a lot of screenplays, and Shane Black does this interesting thing when you're reading it. Even Lethal Weapon, if you read Lethal Weapon, the first one, you know, it's a little bit more straight with action than it is, you know, less humorous than the later ones became. But it's kind of interesting if you read the screenplay, because Shane Black writes these like interesting little inside jokes to the people reading the scripts that aren't intended for film. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of interesting to see Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because I felt like that was, you know, the full, like I feel like with screenplays, when the screenwriter's not directing, you kind of get some stuff gets lost in translation, where you lose some of the humor. So I thought that was a good sample of, you know, Shane Black, and I got to see Shane Black, and I got his jokes came through, and I find that like it's just an interesting watch. I don't know if you guys seen that one.
I have, and it's brilliant. It really is. I mean, the narrative, and especially with, you know, Robert Downey Jr. reading it, it's one of those things where you're sitting there laughing the entire time, and then you have action sequences occurring, and you're like, oh, holy crap, that just happened. And then there's this witty banter, you know, between the two people, and you can kind of see little bits and pieces of it, like when you think of Lethal Weapon. You know, you had the two of them working together, and there's just these little banters between them, and, you know, so you got to see a little bit of it for the ones that he did not direct. But what you said with the screenplay, it's almost like the narrative was his little, you know, thoughts between of what was happening, so he could explain it and make more humor during the movie. I'm definitely going to sit down and read the script to that one, because I'm very curious to see if there's any extras, because I think he probably put as much as he could into it. It was brilliant.
Yeah, he does a good job with like the back and forths too. If you look at like a lot of his movies, they're all like paired action comedies, like Last Boy Scout, Last Action Hero. Like it all has that dynamic. You know, where it has like a more of a main character. It has a lot of humor in it. But yeah, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I don't know what it is, but I think it got, if I can remember correctly, I think it came out around the same time as Lucky Number 11, and for whatever reason, that got a lot more play with people. So I don't know if it just got had kind of a similar feel or plot, and people just watched that one and didn't watch the other one. But I feel like more people should see Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I feel like that was a really good movie.
Yeah, I think I think Shane Black is just indicative of what Marvel's been doing, and they've really been plucking these directors and other movie studios as well. After watching what Marvel's doing, they're pulling these directors that have done smaller projects or intimate projects or even excellent television like Captain America and those directors had only done like Community or something like that. And Joss Whedon, you know, is Joss Whedon in mainstream wise, unless you knew who Joss was or you ran in those circles, or you didn't understand what a fantastic director or character director he was. And Shane Black is just another addition to a lot of those things that you're seeing now, like with Godzilla and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that director had only really done documentaries before. So they're really stepping away from the Michael Bays and the Jerry Bruckheimers and all these to understand that this genre of film is about character development. And the reason we love comics and we love that genre of film is because of those characters have been with us since we were kids, for the most part. We grew up loving Spider-Man and the cartoons and the comics and Iron Man and the Hulk and all those things. So we don't just need a bunch of big blow 'em up or some weird Hulk like Ang Lee did, which is what's getting lost when you have like Webb doing Spider-Man for Sony and other examples like that. So I think Shane Black's just another good example. Iron Man 3 wasn't my favorite film. I didn't like a lot of the things that they did in that film, but it was still another good Marvel franchise. Now, if anyone could explain to me why the Transformers has made almost $1 billion before I shoot myself, please do. But we are at that time. I told you, Tommy, time goes quick. We're already at the end of the show, man. I told you it wouldn't be a problem.
There you go.
But we're gonna move into our final thoughts for the show. Now, Tommy, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the chance to go first.
Oh man, I should have thought about this better.
Hey, I sent out an email.
I know that's true. That's true.
And it was scripted. Come on.
So I'm seeing more and more about the Ninja Turtles movie coming out, and the toy lines are coming out, and I'm taking when I take my son to the store, and when I'm starting to look at the toys, and it kind of hit me. I don't understand for the life of me why they can't sync up the Ninja Turtles with the current television show. Like, my son's is into Ninja Turtles now, and he really digs it. And now he's looking at these new Ninja Turtles, and he's like, why do they look so weird? And I'm trying to explain to him that they're trying to appeal to me as an adult based on this TV show that was out in the 80s, which I have shown him, But so they're making this movie that's geared towards me, but being promoted by the current Nickelodeon TV show, and then it just reminds me that the original Ninja Turtles movie was based on the comic line and not the original 80s television show. Like, I don't understand why they can't get on the same page and just make one stupid Ninja Turtles movie that's current with a TV show. Like, my kid wants to see the Ninja Turtles that he's watching on the TV show on a weekly basis. He wants to see a movie version of it, just like I wanted to see, Ninja Turtles take on Krang and stuff when the original movie came out. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand what they're doing with it. I don't understand why they can't get on the same page. I think I'm right in that Nickelodeon owns everything now. Like, why not just, what's the point of doing this? Like, why make foot soldiers SWAT team members? Like, what's wrong with ninjas? Like, ninjas are cool, right? Like, I don't need to see guys running around with guns when we have ninjas fighting on rooftops. Like, ninjas fighting on rooftops in silent, in the shadows, is going to beat, like, these giant wisecracking turtles that are fighting on a snowy mountain. Like, why are we on a snowy mountain? Are we bored of New York City already? Like, the movie series hasn't even started yet. We're already moving locations. Like, I just don't understand it.
They've released some footage. I haven't seen it, but I've talked to some people that have, and I've read a few things on it. I don't know, man. A lot of people that a lot of sources I trust are saying it's actually very fun. That the trailers are misleading in the quality of what it is.
Well,
So,
I will say the more that I see of it, the more I'm kind of interested to see it. Like I'm gonna go see it. I cannot not go see it. But it just irks me. Like, I just don't understand it. It seems like such an easy thing. Like, you have this successful television show for kids. They love it. You just make a movie version of it and you make bank. But no, they have to like do this stupid thing where they're trying to appeal to me by making this movie that the current kids don't understand. Like it's just silly.
So where can everybody find you at? Tommy, have you been putting anything on the website lately? What can people check you out?
They can check me out. I mean, I'm always on Twitter at Tommy Surratt. I put a couple things, like I just did a big write-up for 5 things about writing a video game screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I find it interesting, but I mean, I'm speaking as a writer, so it has all sorts of nerdy writing stuff in it. But I feel like it's a good read. I mean, there's definitely some things that I wish I knew going into writing a video game screenplay. And you can always check out the current video game I'm working on at bluekeygames.com. If you want to check that out, we have a free game up there. You can play it.
Nice.
Now, Isola, why don't you? We didn't get a chance to talk to you at the beginning. Why don't you give us a couple of minutes about what you do, where we can find you? Because you're a blogger in your own right.
Yes.
And what is it you do? Where can we find you?
Well, first you can find me at thefatalsiren.com. That is my blog. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter, The Fatal Siren. I actually came up with that name because I wanted something that was kind of like my alter ego if I were to be a superhero. I used to do musical theater growing up, so I love to sing, so I figured, ooh, siren, you know, they have this beautiful voice. So I was like, maybe we'll do something with that, and then it just kind of came up, so it's been a lot of fun. I've been blogging for a year now, and it's mostly, you know, pop culture. I'll do some on comics, artists that I meet at Comic-Con or any of the cons, actually, that I go to. I'm just kind of spreading the word on, you know, new graphic novelists and comic book writers, you know, kind of giving the female perspective on this type of genre, because although there are women out there, that we're a very small, you know, amount in comparison. So it's kind of nice to just give my own perspective and show, hey, girls like to play video games, we like to read comics, we like to go to the movies, and, you know, just kind of bring it out there so that other girls, women, any age can kind of, you know, see that they're not alone. And I love to cosplay, so I'm getting all my costumes ready for Comic-Con, which is coming up soon, and I'm a little behind, but we're gonna get it all done. Lots of sleepless nights. So.
And you're gonna be doing some video interviews for us at Comic-Con, right?
Yes.
Is that what we were talking about?
Excited. Huh?
Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about. That's what I said.
Yeah. So this will be my first year actually doing the videos, which I'm very excited about. I actually, for work, we did this small video. I work for an insurance company, and so we made this little funny comic-like Ninja Turtle, but it was based on a lizard. So that gives you an idea of where I may work. So it was very comedic, very comical, and going back to the Ninja Turtles, we actually kept it kind of close to the original. So it was a lot of fun. So I think I've got, you know, everything ready. You know, we'll shake off the nerves a little bit, because obviously I'm a perfectionist. I don't like to, you know, really sell anything short. So I'm going to work my hardest, and it's going to be a great con. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll run it. Well, I don't know. We'll probably have to figure out how to run into each other there. If you've never been to San Diego Comic-Con, you could lose you could lose somebody within seconds there and never see them again. It's like nothing you've ever seen unless you've gone to apparently like a World Cup game. I think I heard the World Cup, there was like 170,000 people at the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Comic-Con averages, I think it's like 110 to 120,000 people for the weekend. I mean, it's just a ridiculous amount of people, and it stretches over a huge amount of floor space in several buildings and everything.
It's not.
Yeah, it is, and that was one of the reasons I reached out to you, to help us with some of our contributions, was because we do like to talk to a lot of indie artists and graphic novelists and things like that, and really be that kind of indie boutique, where we help that community any way we can to flourish. So my final thought, man, there's so many things happening. There's so many things coming up. San Diego Comic-Con, we got one more podcast before that, but the next podcast will be released while I'm actually there on the next Saturday. So this Saturday, when this is released, we are doing our very first event. We've been talking about it for a month and a half now or so for Geeks for Courageous Kids, where we've got some cosplayers together, and we're going to go help the Ronald McDonald House, serve some pancakes, hopefully serve some smiles, have the cosplayers take some pictures with some kids that have had some, and their families that have had a tough time in their lives at some point or another, and hopefully that's a budding relationship with them. And that's Saturday. I'm excited. It's something. My wife just got her cards for that today. She is the director of Geeks for Courageous Kids, and is setting up. I know she needs to talk to, honey. I know you're listening. You need to talk to. There's somebody else she needs to talk to about getting us involved with kids with Down syndrome and some other cancer, pediatric cancer groups and stuff like that, to whatever we can do to help raise money and awareness and all that good stuff with the cosplayers that we work with, which is fantastic. We have some excellent ones going on Saturday. We have about 4 or 5. We're going to have everything from Spider-Man to Wolverine there, and hopefully the kids really, really enjoy it. We're going to have Poison Ivy. We're going to have, and Alicia's going to be there as well. You guys should know Alicia. She was going to be on the last couple of weeks, but she's had some issues with migraines. So, she'll be there, and then she'll be at San Diego Comic-Con as well. But I think that's about all I've got. So from me and the rest of the Popcorn crew, we bid you farewell, we bid you adieu, and we'll see you next week.